President Trump is speaking out in favor of Bible literacy classes taught in public schools. The president today declaring in a tweet, quote, "Giving students the option of studying the Bible is great." The president's support comes as lawmakers have introduced Bible literacy bills in Florida, Indiana, Missouri, North Dakota, Virginia, and West Virginia, some of which have already been voted down.
And joining us now is Trey Goins-Phillips from FaithWire to talk more about Bible teachings in public schools. Trey, these classes would focus on biblical literacy and the Bible's historical significance. Lawmakers now behind the bills say they want to restore traditional values in schools, but opponents say these bills could violate the U.S. Constitution's Establishment Clause. What's your take on that?
Well, to me, if you're going to have a class that's talking about literacy and it's talking about the role that Scripture has played, and particularly in the founding of the country, I think that can be only helpful. I understand complaints and concerns about proselytizing, but I think these bills and the defenders of these bills have made clear that they don't want to preach like they're in a pulpit. They want to teach like they're in a classroom and help students to understand better. As an anecdote, I had an experience when I was in community college several years ago. It was a public college, obviously, and I was in a literature class, and one of the students pushed back on our professor when she referenced an Old Testament passage and said, "You can't teach that in a public institution. That's against the separation of church and state." And she said, "Well, from a literary perspective, the Bible has historical significance." And she said, in the Old Testament in particular is the story of the Jewish people. It's the story of how they came to be. So these texts, the Old and New Testament, have historical significance.
Right.
And I think to deny that is just ignorant.
Right. Well, to that point, we use phrases all the time like Good Samaritan, which has more than just cultural reference. It has biblical reference. So if you don't teach that, you're missing the significance there. But in a country that's becoming more and more secular, won't it be difficult for measures like this to pass?
I think there's kind of a hunkering down in local smaller districts, but I do think nationally we'll see more and more pushback from big groups like the UCLA and what have you.
Trey, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
And for more on FaithWire, you can check out their program on the CBN News channel. You can find that every Monday night at 9:30 p.m.